like slow it down a bit.
Yeah.
Like enunciate the Honzo's aluminum.
The Honzo's aluminum frames.
Yeah.
The Honzo's aluminum frame. Hey everybody, I'm Mike Kasmer. We're here in Sedona, Arizona for the annual Pinkbike field trip. We're taking a look at a bunch of affordable trail bikes. Right now, we check out the Kona Honzo. The Honzo's been in Kona's lineup for 8 years, and it was one of the first 29ers to go down the long and slack route. Now, its geometry numbers don't look quite as long or slack these days, but it's still intended to be a do-it-all, easy to ride, simple machine. As for geometry numbers, in the size large, it's a 475mm reach with a 68-degree head angle, so a 120mm fork. And then on the chain stays, you're looking at 420mm, so nice and short back there. Seat-tube angle is 75 degrees. Weight for this bike as it sits is 32.3 pounds. So what are we looking at for components on this $1,500 hardtail? We'll start up front. We've got a 120mm RockShox Recon fork, no rear suspension, so nothing to worry about there. Drivetrain is handled by SRAM. That's that SX 12-speed drivetrain with the 11 to 50 tooth cassette. Plenty of range. We have Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, and those are the MT 400 series. You have a Transx dropper post. WTB takes care of the tires on this bike. It's a 2.25-inch Trail Boss. Unfortunately, they're not tubeless ready, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Up front in the cockpit, you've got a Kona branded stem, bar, and their own lock-on grips. The Honzo's aluminum frame is pretty simple. You got external cable routing for the brake and derailleur, through axle in the rear, room for water ball inside the front triangle. It is missing some chain slap protection, so you're gonna need to get a little creative, maybe wrap a tube or something around there to quiet things down. But overall, just back to the basics, simplicity is the name of the game here with the Honzo. We've been bouncing this green machine off all the rocks and cactus here in Sedona for the last couple weeks, so now let's talk about how this bike actually rides.
So if you're going to talk about value bikes, you have to talk about a hardtail, of course. You're going to get more for your money if you don't have to pay for that rear suspension. Kona Honzo, hardtail, no rear suspension. First thing we're going to talk about, setup.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much easier than setting up a hardtail. Obviously, no shock to fiddle around with. That fork, we end up going 20 to 30 pounds more than RockShox recommends in order to give it that support you're looking for. Other setup notes, this bike has WTB tires that aren't tubeless ready. No matter how much you try, it's unlikely to be able to get them set up tubeless, so something to keep in mind. We luckily avoided any flats on this. Ran around 23 PSI in the front, 25 in the rear.
Because we're so smooth. Super
smooth. We got lucky on this one, at least.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But overall, once those are set, it's ready to go. I had a good time on it.
Yeah.
You know, start with the climbing. It's a hardtail, so efficiency obviously doesn't get much more efficient than that.
Very efficient.
Yeah, aluminum frame. It's not the lightest, but it is lighter than some of the other bikes we have on test. Step on the pedals, goes forward quickly. Climbing position was pretty comfortable. It's got a fairly steep head tube angle, 68 degrees. Yeah,
right?
68 degree head tube angle, which is actually the steepest on test, but it didn't feel sketchy to me at all. Kind of maneuver around, kind of feels like a classic hardtail.
It feels like you'd expect an aluminum hardtail to feel. It's meant for trail riding, and that's exactly how it comes across. It doesn't ever feel floppy, but it also doesn't ever feel too steep. It feels appropriate.
Yeah, when we're talking about that it's an aluminum hardtail, we also have a steel hardtail on test. A lot of times people say, oh, aluminum's harsh, you need that steel for the compliance. But realistically, I didn't have any issues with it feeling overly harsh.
I mean, there's no shock on any of them. They
Yeah.
all feel harsh,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, I don't think you need to be afraid of aluminum frame, you know, rattling your fillings out. It was fine.
So you're at the top of the hill. You got to come back down the hill on this hardtail, Casimir. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I got to remember that I'm on a hardtail, bring back
Very
some
important.
of those skills. Yeah, just got to remind yourself.
No rear suspension and a 68-degree head angle. It's definitely a bike that is for someone who thinks about their line choice. It's not for somebody who just sends it blindly into the chunder. You're going to get yourself into trouble if you do that on this bike.
Yeah, and the geometry on this bike, it is kind of all about fun. It's got super short chain stays, 420mm, and a relatively longer front center, 475mm reach. So that's kind of just a party setup, basically.
Yeah.
Lets you get that back end, swapping around if you want.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like an overgrown dirt jumper, which I liked. Our test loop had some pretty fun little jumps and drops in it on this bike. It's super easy, pop off those lips, goof around, and it's just, yeah, it's a fun bike.
Yeah, I think that 475mm reach helps this bike a lot. If it was a shorter reach with that head angle, aluminum hardtail, short rear end, I think it would feel a little sketchy, but I mean, it's surprisingly capable here and fun.
Yeah. as I said, it's a bike for goofing off, but we did do some time testing just because people like numbers.
Have to be serious
Gotta be
sometimes.
serious science happened out there. So timed results, what are yours looking like?
Pretty good overall. My loop time, it was 4th out of 8 bikes. On the climb, it was 5th out of 8 bikes. Obviously, it's going to feel pretty dang efficient. That rear suspension on this thing is very efficient. And on the downhill, it was actually tied for 2nd. Our downhill, it's not super rowdy. It's trail bike appropriate. Again, a little rough at the top, some berms, some jumps, that kind of thing. 2nd fastest time.
Yeah, mine is sitting at 3rd overall. Somehow I got my slowest climb on this, I think. I don't know what happened there. Might have stopped for a snack maybe, but 3rd on the descent as well.
I think you just needed a break maybe.
I got tired. Yeah, maybe I was sleepy.
Yeah.
But overall, 3rd fastest time on this bike out of 8. So pretty reasonable.
Definitely.
Especially for a hardtail, it's up against some full suspension bike. So
yeah. So let's talk about some of the components that you're gonna get for $1,499. Casimir, what's some standout things on here?
Standout things, I mean, you do have that RockShox Recon fork. That's all the suspension on the bike. I mentioned before, you kind of got to put a bunch of air in it, but it gets the job done. And I think the shorter travel works even better, 120 millimeters, just kind of, basically you just want it to take the edge off the bigger hits.
Yeah, I would say this Recon, so we've got the Recons on a lot of other value bikes here, but this particular Recon actually felt the best.
Yeah, we mentioned the tires aren't tubeless ready, so it's kind of unfortunate there. The brakes, Shimano's MT400 brakes, which, you know, towards the bottom of their lineup.
I love their names.
I know, they're very catchy, easy to remember. But these ones actually weren't too bad. I mean, they're not the most powerful, but on this bike, they worked all right, and they were better than the ones that were on the Stance. The Stance has the MT200, it's like the next level down. These ones actually did slow you down, where those other ones took a lot more effort to slow you down. So.
Right out of the gate, it comes with a good cockpit, it comes with a dropper post that works very well, and wheels that held up.
Yeah, talking about the frame, there was one little detail. There's like a cable guide was missing, and where the cable comes right near the head tube, it could use one more cable guide.
I don't know if it's not missing as in they forgot to put it on, like they purposely didn't put one on, and it ends up with the housing just like hanging way out like this. Not good. That's not ideal.
But an easy fix and not the end of the world at all.
Just to wrap a piece of tape around your frame, right?
Yeah, exactly. Duct tape fixes everything.
Yeah. $1,499. What are you gonna upgrade?
I think I'd start with those tires. Just get some tubeless ready tires. Don't have to worry about flats as much. So, you know, a little bit pricey off the bat. Nobody wants to spend that extra 100, but it's gonna be worth it. And then after that, I think you just ride the piss out of it until something breaks.
Yeah, I agree with Casimir. Really, change the tires, set them up tubeless, and then just ride this thing a lot. It's fun. That's all you really need to do.
Yeah, so the nice thing about it being a hardtail frame, no maintenance on the frame itself. The frame should last you multiple seasons. So, you know, as parts wear out, you just can replace them with nicer parts, but overall, there's nothing you need to run out and replace right away other than those tires.
We should also mention the Norco Torrent, that steel hardtail that's here. This is a very different bike to that. This is a bike that you're gonna cover a lot of ground on. You might not be going super fast on the gnarly stuff, but you might be having more fun on the tamer stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit more well-rounded. You know, it's not quite as long, quite as slack as that thing. Kind of has more of a classic cross-country feel, but I would even say it's not old school cross-country. It's kind of a modern.
Yeah, it's definitely capable. It feels well-balanced, and yeah, it feels surprisingly capable. Of course, it's not the bike that you're just gonna be sending it blindly into the chunder. But, you know, for a trail rider that wants to cover a lot of ground and wants to have a lot of fun while they're doing it.
Yeah, good choice for that. There you have it. That's the Kona Honzo. Stay tuned for more videos from the Pinkbike field trip here in Sedona, Arizona, as well as a roundtable discussion where we talk about the pros and cons of all the bikes we have here to test.
Should we go Honzoing now?
Let's go Honzoing.
Okay.